Okay, good afternoon. Welcome everybody to this workshop. Thank you very much for being with us. This is a workshop on institutional change in European research funding and performing organizations, the power of responsible research and innovation. This is the title of our workshop. We're going to have presentation from three Horizon 2020 funded projects, the GRACE project, the GRRIP project, and the Fit4RRI project. And the main aim of this workshop is to give practical insights on how to foster responsible research and innovation-oriented institutional changes in research funding and performing organizations from a number of different perspectives, mobilizing and engaging societal actors involved in science and innovation, promoting open science, developing co-creation processes, nurturing public engagement, and ensuring gender equality. So welcome to all of you. I'm going to introduce our speakers. My name is Nikos Zacharis. I'm the director of Southeast European Research Center, and our research center is participating in both GRACE and Fit4RRI projects. First of all, I would like to introduce to Dr. Ildiko Ipoli, who is a science officer of the European Science Foundation, and she's leading the Science with and for Society program of the organization. She's leading the GRACE project and also is coordinating the Territoria, Casper, and UNICEF projects and participates in Time for CS and WBCRRI net projects. All of them are funded by Science with and for Society Horizon 2020 programs. Then is Ms. Aida Diaz, who is a European Policy Officer at the Agency for Management of Universities and Research Grants, AGAUR, the Catalan government agency responsible for awarding grants for universities and research, as well as promoting research and science. Then from the GRIP project, we have Dr. Elmina Homapour, who is the CEM Faculty Apprenticeship Lead and Lecturer of Maths and Statistics in the School of Computer Science and Informatics at De Montfort University in the UK. And from the GRIP project again, Dr. Erna Karaliga, who is Associate Professor at the Faculty of Science at the University of Sarajevo. She's primary investigation on numerous projects funded by international and national funding bodies, and currently she's a project manager of the GRIP and the RING projects. Finally, Dr. Andrea Solomon, who is the Deputy Director of my research center, Southeast European Research Center, and also Chairman of the External Grants Committee at the Triple Helix Association, is going to talk to us about the Fit4RRI experience. So thank you again for all of you being here, and I'll pass the floor to Dr. Ildiko Ipoli to start her presentation.
Thank you very much, Nikos. I'm going to share my presentation.
There will be times for questions after the three presentations.
Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nikos, for the introduction. So I'm going to I have issues progressing with the files, with the slides. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your patience. So I'm going to talk about today the concept of the GRACE project, grounding RRI practices in research funding and performing organizations. So the overall aim of the GRACE project, GRACE focuses on spreading and embedding responsible research and innovation in the European research era by facilitating sustainable processes of institutional change. And how does it do that? So it does it by the development of a set of smart grounding action in a selection of 6 research funding and performing organizations, coordinating a selection of grounding actions into specific roadmaps towards RRI, using the GRACE project period for putting down the foundations for attaining more complex institutional changes in the medium and the long-term period. And doing this by developing an approach that facilitates rapid institutional change by providing expert support in the frame of mutual learning process and a co-creation environment. We are facing this work with a wonderful consortium of 10 partners, 6 implementing organizations, research funding organizations that are focusing on anchoring responsible research and innovation practices in their organizations, and 6 cooperating organizations, the expert organizations that assist the implementing organizations in doing so. The GRACE project is based on the assumption that responsible research and innovation has a very important role to play in the complex changes affecting research and innovation and institutional life as a whole. And in this framework, RRI and GRACE is first of all a strategy that helps the research funding and performing organizations to manage the circumstances, requirements, and processes constantly affecting research and innovation ecosystem, and including their own internal operating mechanism. And moreover, it is also an approach that aims to promote a better interaction between the organization and its external actors and provides a more efficient means to cope with their current activities, such as research assessment, publications, and also internal work-life balance. But what are the key features of GRACE? The first thing that I would like to mention is the grounding actions. GRACE is based on grounding actions rather than a more rigid action plan structures. What are grounding actions? Grounding actions are actions that or coordinated set of activities that actually put down the basis of the RRI keys in the institutions or the institutional processes and allow a wide variety of follow-up actions. Of course, the contents vary by RRI keys, but also adjusted to the specific institutional needs where they are implemented. Then the roadmaps towards RRI. The roadmaps actually essentially draw up a path with long-term vision for the implementing organizations to ensure the sustainability of their RRI effort. And they are based on the grounding actions implemented within the project period and tailored to the institutional needs, as I mentioned before. I also would like to mention the project co-creation and mutual learning environment, where the expert organizations support the implementing organizations in designing their grounding actions and also the implementation of these grounding actions by specific monitoring and mentoring scheme developed for the purpose, and also with the support of mutual learning sessions to facilitate the knowledge sharing among the implementing organizations. I would also like to underline the specific evaluation and impact assessment approach of the project. GRACE applies a shape-up formative process evaluation and assesses the immediate and the long-term impacts of the grounding actions towards the more indicators and the sustainable development goals. And at last but not at least, I would also like to mention an important overarching feature of the project, which is to facilitate the enlargement of the network of the implementing organizations as of the quadruple helix model. And first of all, to assure the importance of the responsibility towards society, but also to keep the focus on the societal challenges in the research actions. And as last information, I would like to say that the project is organized in 3 consecutive steps. And during the first 9 months of the project, we actually concentrated on the institutional assessment and the development of the self-tailored RRI profile of the implementing organizations, the design of the grounding actions, and the first version of the roadmaps were developed. Now we are in the middle of the development and the mutual learning phase, where we are focusing on the implementation of the grounding actions at the implementing organizations with expert assistance. And the last couple of months of the project will be actually focusing on taking stock of the project results. And first of all, we will focus on the roadmap, on the revision of the roadmaps with the focus on long-term sustainability of actions and assess the project and RRI impacts in the implementing organizations. So this is all I wanted to say as a concept introduction to the GRACE project. Thank you very much for your attention. For more information, please visit our booth on BRELLA. You can do it now or after this session. And now I would like to pass the word to my colleague, Aida Diaz from AGAUR. AGAUR is one of the implementing organizations in the GRACE project. And Aida is going to explain to us now the benefits that the GRACE project has brought to her organization and the experiences that they had up till now within the GRACE project. Aida, with this, I pass you the word and thank you very much again for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ildiko.
I stop sharing.
I'm going to share my screen now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes. So, as a partner of the GRACE project, I'm going to explain you how we are implementing RRI actions in our institution at AGAUR. AGAUR is a research and university is the research and university funding organization from the Catalan government, and our beneficiaries are all the universities, research centers, and research infrastructures in Catalonia. Before the GRACE project, an overall institutional strategy on RRI was not still in place in our institution. RRI elements were already included in some institutional initiatives and funding programs, but not in a structured and in a systematic manner. Also, the RRI concept was becoming more relevant for our cost management, and also was a push from the government on that side, but the level of knowledge and awareness of the AGAUR staff was quite limited, and also it was not an RRI unit devoted to RRI issues and not a specific guidelines on protocols. So we decided to go for this project, and our main objectives and what we wanted to achieve, first of all, was align our institution towards RRI principles, also to expand our corporate social responsibility, also to make our staff more aware of RRI issues, to lead a cultural change in the way we do research and we manage research, to become a more inclusive, open and transparent agency, and also to become a reference entity and a driving force at regional government, and implement all of these issues together with the rest of actors of the quadruple helix of the territory. Our roadmap, our strategy, how we have been implemented the RRI strategy has been based in two main axes. The first axis is adopting an holistic approach toward RRI, both addressing institutional change within AGAUR, within our policies, initiatives, and so on, and also embedding RRI issues in our funding programs. And also the second axis is to foster RRI at regional level and to become, as I said before, a key player at that sense and a proactive entity towards RRI. And within the GRACE project, we are going to deal with 4 different policy agendas: governance, gender equality, research ethics and integrity, and open access. And we are attaching great importance to the governance, as it sets the frame for the other RRI policy agendas. Also, as we are really beginners and we wanted to create a really solid basis and to secure the coherence, the consistency and efficiency of all this process, we are implementing all the different policy agendas at the same time. So we are going to do an RRI guidelines, which includes all the policy agendas, and also an overall RRI training plan and awareness plan. Here you have an overall scheme of our roadmaps, as Ildiko has said before, which includes the post-project period and also the stabilization period. We are going to implement 9 grounding actions, 3 grounding actions for the RRI governance and 2 grounding actions for each of the policy agendas. And in order to create these grounding actions, we have used this reflection tool that has been created by Aarhus University, which is one of the partners of our consortium, and for us has been extremely useful, because this reflection tool has helped us to reflect what we wanted to achieve, to set up the measurable success criteria, to monitor and evaluate the project, to see the potential obstacles, to reflect then the resources that we will need to implement all these activities, and also which are going to be the stakeholders that are going to be affected in the process. So in some way, all of our grounding actions includes all these 6 dimensions and give answers to all these questions. Here you have an overall time frame of our project during these 3 years. And here you have also how we're going to govern it. We're not going to be alone. We are working together with the government. Also, we are working together with all the other projects on RRI that are being developed at the regional level. And also we have created an external stakeholders group with key people that are helping us to implement all these policy agendas, both at institutional level, at the regional level. Some potential barriers that we thought at the beginning of the project was going to be the lack of support from the management and leaders team of the agency. Also some resistance to change among our staff. Also a lack of coordination between our units. Also the difficulties on embedding the RRI framework in the AGAUR current routines and practice. So which measures we decide to implement in order to overcome these barriers was, for the very beginning, involve all the top leaders from our organization and keep them informed during all this process. Second, build a real narrative about the importance of implementing RRI. So they see the GRACE project as a tool to improve or to implement all these objectives, results, activities that they wanted to do it, but they couldn't do it because there was a lack of resources or a lack of time. So GRACE as a service, at the service of the entity, and also as an institutional project. We have also set up working groups for each of the different policies agenda. And also each working group is composed by staff of each unit of the institution. So all the units of our institutions are already involved in that process. We have also adopted a participatory approach. All these grounding actions has been done through a co-creation approach. And always we also have an approach really positive, RRI as an improvement and not a lack of not having done things when we approach our people. And also another potential barriers that we thought it was going to be there was about the skills and capacities of our staff members. So we have created a training plan for all our staff members, and also creating a specific training plan more advanced for those people who are going to deal most with all the implementing of the grounding actions. And also think about rewards for these people. So why explain them why it's necessary for them to implement all these issues. And for instance, apart from all this training, we allow them the opportunity to participate in international conference, organize meetings with other external advisors, with external key people, just to make the project interesting for them. And also to end the potential barriers, also regarding the normative, logistic, organizational obstacles that we may find when implementing these grounding actions, and also the difficulties to develop measures that are in conformity with the reality of our grant beneficiaries. All the measures that we have implemented, we have done a feasible analysis before. All we are implementing are really feasible and is viable, that we're going to be able to include it, to implement it. And also we have created this stakeholders, external stakeholders group in order to help us to implement, and all the things we're implemented already will be possible to do, or will be possible to implement also by our funding for our beneficiaries. Just to end my presentation, what we have learned about all this process, we have to say, have been a really positive activities and exercise. We are extremely happy about it. But one thing that we have to highlight is that we have to involve all the projects from all the actors from the very beginning. Everybody has to be involved, and now everybody has to be in the same page from the very beginning. Also, you need a lot of pedagogy and explanation. All the activities we are implementing in the organization, we have to explain why, and related to other activities, policies, initiatives that we are also implemented, in order that they can see that this is useful and this is something that we should all go for it. And also embedded RRI in our institutional practices. I mean, RRI is not coming from a European project, it's something from the institution, and it's really, really part of the institutional policies. Also a balance between a co-creation and oriented approach. It's really nice, all this participatory approach, but we want to take out most of our initiative. We also have to orient a little bit what we're going to do. And last but not least, that everything is already invented. There are a lot of different projects as the one we are here, a lot of literature, a lot of guidelines, a lot of things. So if you want to implement, RRI things, we have seen that there are a lot of guidelines and a lot of frameworks to look at. And this is all. Thank you very much. And now I pass the floor to Erna from IRCOSA of Greece. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ida. Let me just share my screen. Hope you can see my screen now. Okay, great. It's really nice to be here and to give you some presentation about GRRIP project and what we are doing in the GRRIP project. I will play you a video and I hope that you will hear it, because I didn't saw any option to share my sound as usual in Zoom.
Why is the marine and maritime research sector still represented by a high proportion of male engineers while displaying low gender equality improvements? And why do marine and maritime research organizations show reluctance to making their research data available to the public? Is that due to its high cost and IP concerns? What would it look like if the research sector becomes responsible in addition to carrying out great research and innovation? 5 experienced marine research sites are committed to making that change happen. We started a joint effort called GRRIP, Grounding Responsible Research and Innovation Practices in Research Performing Organizations. GRRIP is pushing 5 key recommendations to address, implement, make interventions on ethics, gender equality, open access and data, public engagement, and science education. Ethics is an integral part of the whole research process. By getting the ethics right, research excellence can be achieved. Research organizations should set course for better representativity. Results and data should be available to encourage reuse, review, replication, and continued curiosity. Collaboration with societal actors during the research process suits the scale of marine research and helps break down the walls between science and society. Encouraging curiosity and sharing scientific capability makes everyone better able to understand. The scaffolding of governance creates incentives and disincentives and affects how research and innovation is done. Why not address governance first if one wants to change the system? GRRIP is targeting a holistic transformative change toward this 5-dimensional responsibility, adding to it environmental sustainability. GRRIP takes the lead for the implementation of globally agreed standards. Working on creating a sustainable, growing, and proactive marine and maritime research community, accepting institutional and cultural change, and doing this together with sites from different EU states. These are the hallmarks of GRRIP. Because we know how to fundamentally improve research in the blue economy, we seek collaborators and intend to tell this story to the public. We incorporate the best of RRI into the governance framework of 5 marine and maritime institutions. Research performing organizations and 1 site that both funds and performs research in the marine and maritime sector work on their action plans together with teams of expert researchers in order to achieve meaningful change for research. We intend to demonstrate how it can be done. GRIP will help sites to deliver the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, contribute to the global efforts of ending poverty, ensure marine food security and sustainability, promote science education, improve research into renewable energies, climate change, and the sustainable use of the ocean. Through these initiatives, GRIP and its research coalition will help change the world of marine management and research. Because our aim is no less than creating a sustainable, growing and proactive marine and maritime RRI community. Join us. GRIP Project, grounding responsible research and innovation practices in research performing organizations. Why is the marine and maritime research?
So after this video that gave you the introduction, what is GRIP about, and what we are aiming to do, I will give you a short introduction of what is the project structure. First, what we intended to do was to identify the stakeholders who are going to be included into the project, who are we aiming for and who is important for us, as well as for our case studies. We included in this process forming our working groups within each case study to be able to apply and to conduct all the action plans that we are going to be developing. We also included the level to investigate the maturity level of RRI that currently exists in the case studies. And for this, we performed an audit of the current level of RRI maturity, and we collected the data and identified the baselines. Within this, we also identified all the gaps that were present in the case studies. And through this, we identified also the possible list of the interventions that sites could choose upon from. And the second part of that identification was also selection of the interventions and creation of the action plan, and then the implementation of the action plans, and of course, monitoring and evaluation of the successful implementing of the interventions through identification of different indicators that we are going to follow upon. I will hand over to Elmina to give you more information about all of these processes that were included into the GRIP project structure and how all of this is going to be achieved. So Elmina, over to you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So I continue with highlighting what we have done so far and where we are at the moment. So we have completed the audit, including surveys for working groups, researcher, and stakeholder. We took the bottom-up and top-down approaches, as well as conducting interviews with the site's working group. As part of the audit, we have developed the RRI baseline levels for all the sites. We have prepared a list of intervention, which includes 6 goals and 74 short-term, medium-term, and long-term cultural and institutional intervention, cross-cutting with the 5 RRI pillars and governance. In order to support the sites to embed RRI into their organization, we have been created the intervention based on the GRIP proposal, audit result, the state of art, and other projects such as MORI project. We delivered the list of intervention as well as the action plan framework to sites through various workshops, and sites have been consulted to select the relevant interventions that benefit their organization the most. All the process have been recorded on a shared drive to increase the mutual learning aspect between the site and also for the monitoring purpose. We also developed some tools and frameworks for the sites to design and create their action plans. Currently, we are about to start the trialing and implementing the interventions. In parallel, we have also developed GRIP plan for monitoring and evaluation. Next slide, please. So the GRIP RRI action plan framework aims to support the site to define, plan, track and report the selected cultural and institutional intervention as part of their GRIP action plan creation. This does not show the content of the intervention, but only helps them with the presentation structure. And it has the 4 parts of structure, process, content, monitoring, and evaluation. Next slide, please. So the structure presents the designing tools and the template, such as intervention sheet, intervention overview, indicator dashboard, and the Gantt. Next slide, please. For each of the intervention sites need to complete 1 intervention sheet. So the sheet will record the intervention code and title. So the code is composed of 3 parts, which is the RRI key number, the goal number, and the intervention number. The sheet also records problem that the intervention seeks to address, as well as the response that requires stakeholders to agree on in a very specific organizational context. Next slide, please. So the next field they need to complete is the stakeholder management, which lists the individual and the groups that are involved with or they get benefit from the intervention, such as ownership, champions, target group, or the coordination mechanism. Then the details of intervention, which includes the preparation phases, implementation phases, and follow-up phases, will be recorded on the intervention sheet as well. This sheet also records the barrier, risk, and mitigation strategy for risk management plan, as well as the sustainability plan for the intervention that could have impact beyond the project time. Also, it has a field for plan for trial and the timeline and the stakeholder who will be involved in the trial if the intervention will going through the trial. And the other table in the right-hand side, it gives each intervention sheet details of the indicator, the milestone, and the target thresholds to measure the performance. Next slide, please. So the intervention overview provides an overarching overview of all the interventions, which and their associated stakeholder and their milestone. Next slide, please. The indicator dashboard compares the actual performance against the desired performance for each of the indicators at the predefined milestone to help the gap analysis or monitoring. Next slide, please. The Gantt lists all the interventions and the timeline of their implementation for the next 5 years on a quarterly basis. Next slide, please. As part of the action plan design process, we drafted a bespoke list of intervention and relevant indicators. We have also guided site through the process of selection, refinement, and adoption of the interventions. And this process have been delivered through various mutual learning workshops on planning for change, audit, action plan design, stakeholder management, monitoring and evaluation foresight, and it has been in consultation with the external stakeholder as well. Next slide, please. On the content aspect of the action plans, we have supported the sites by providing these 6 goals, and also there are 74 sub-interventions, which they include all the 5 pillars as well as governance. Next slide, please. So the monitoring will consist of 5 phases of audit, action planning, implementation, and completion and post-completion. And this will use the indicator dashboard, which is a collection of all the indicator details from each of the intervention sheets. To help the gap analysis. We also record information on what evidence need to be collected, when and how should evidence be collected, and who will collect the evidence and from whom. Thank you very much. I now pass the digital floor to Adrian from Fit4RRI project.
Thank you very much. Just one second to share the screen. Okay, excellent. So thank you very much for the previous presentation that actually fed quite well into everything that I'm going to present now. Just in light of saving a bit of time and leaving a bit more space for discussion, I will speed up and focus on the key elements rather than repeating some of the things that have been said already, because as you very well know, the concept of RRI more or less applied in different contexts, but at the end of the day, it yields similar results, let's say. So let's see in a bit more details what is happening in the Fit4RRI project, which was, of course, as well a SWAFS funded project during 2017-2020. And in very simple terms, Fit4RRI looked into the embedment of RRI and open science via quadruple helix experiments. And of course, you can go more and find out more details from our website, which contains all the results and all the deliverables from all this work. And in very simple terms, before we continue to the next slides, I just want to explain what do we mean in this project by the term experiment, because sometimes when you hear this terminology, you might go directly to very advanced scientific items. But in this specific case, experiment in the context of Fit4RRI looks at the action of engaging quadruple helix stakeholders in an observation and co-creation, of course, of an ongoing research towards identifying ways that quadruple helix co-creation would enable a better RRI and open science embedment in that specific research project, of course, as well as in the organization overall. Just one second. Okay. And the aim of these experiments, which were 4 in total, and I will share shortly all the details about them, were more or less to test the RRI and open science adoption possibility, to understand what skills are required for successfully embedding RRI and open science, and ultimately to trigger institutional change that would facilitate the integration of RRI and open science. And of course, in order to standardize everything and to keep a unified and centralized approach for monitoring and control of the outcomes of this specific activity, we had, as with the previous project that we have seen, we had a unified methodology, in our case contained of the following stages, such as the appraisal of the stakeholders, the design of the experiment, implementation, follow-up, observation, and an overall mutual learning stage, because this was the most important element in order to ensure that everyone in the consortium that was involved in undertaking such experiments was really aware of all the RRI and open science training opportunities, skills that are required, and overall tools that would help them successfully implement their specific projects. And in order to assess whether this worked or how it worked, and more importantly, rather than just assessing, to understand what are the main lessons learned and what can be done next in order to successfully transition this thing into practice, we had a set of quantitative and qualitative indicators, such as the ones that you see here on the slide. So for example, representation of various internal and external quadruple helix actors related to the experiment, awareness of RRI in the beginning and at the end of the experiment, number of RRI best practices that were utilized, various consensus solutions that were actually meant at the end of the quadruple helix co-creation, because as you are very well aware, whenever you have to deal with various divergent, let's say in some cases, stakeholders, various conflicts and interests appear, and it is very, very important to understand what are the consensus solutions that would make everyone happy to join hands and to successfully contribute to helping the embedment and implementation of RRI and open science. Some of the qualitative ones were related mostly to policy change recommendations, organizational change recommendations, and various requests, especially external requests for collaboration and contribution in RRI-related projects. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, and this is the really, really interesting part, because this was our main goal, and as CERC, we were in charge of coordinating these 4 successful experiments. The end goal through these experiments was to see how RRI and open science can be embedded in organizations in this quadruple helix approach. And the ultimate aim was not just to see, of course, even though on paper the aim was to see, we took this forward because we had very, very ambitious partners that said, okay, this is our opportunity to successfully implement RRI and open science. We had 3 years to work together, and they actually made it a mission to make it something very, very concrete with tangible inputs that you can go and see online and that they will further use even after the project is finalized. And I would like to start with the biggest success. Actually, all 4 experiments were successful, but this one we consider as the biggest success, simply because it was organized and it was implemented by a company. So not by research organizations, not by universities, not by governments, but by industry, by company, which in most of the cases, whenever it comes to RRI, open science, and all these things, they're very reluctant. But this specific company, ISQ from Portugal, they are very big. They're a big, like, quality assurance company with more than 50 years of activity, operating in 20, 30 countries worldwide. So they're a very, very big company. And their goal was, in very simple terms, to develop from scratch an R&D, research and development department, that will be fully based on RRI and open science. And they wanted it to be tailored in the sense that their main issue in the beginning was that, okay, everyone talks about RRI, everything is out there, but all these tools and everything that are there do not apply to us. This was their main starting point and their main challenge, let's say. And what they did throughout this project, all of us, we worked together, and of course, we helped them to develop tailored tools for their organization in order to develop this specific RRI model for their R&D department. And the R&D department is actually now established. It works. It's fully RRI based, and they are even pushing even more in order to establish and to diffuse this RRI concept and open science throughout the entire organization. So from an industrial, let's say, organizational perspective, this is the main achievement from the project when it comes to showing that it is possible, even in industry, to have such an RRI-based R&D department, meaning that all the future research that they will perform will be RRI and open science based, like 100%. And all the people that will be involved, or their staff, will have to undertake the RRI process in order to engage and in order to provide their customer service. The other 3 experiments are also excellent. However, they're more related to university settings, which are more open and more eager, let's say, to engage in RRI and open science. And specifically to this, just to show you some concrete impact and input, like results, concrete results that we had from these other 3 experiments, I would like to mention just the following thing that you see here on the slides. So from one partner, we had as main output an RRI-based societal Fab Lab or co-creation center, Sapere & Co., established by the Sapienza University of Rome. And through the Fit4RRI project, this center was developed in a complete RRI manner. So this is another big success of the project and something that we're really, really proud of for the Italian, let's say, market. Similarly, in the University of Liverpool, which was another partner that implemented such experiments, they managed to achieve throughout Fit4RRI, they managed to achieve some sort of cross-sector or cross-topic enforcement. Maybe it sounds a bit tough, but it is an enforcement of RRI and open science because they saw benefit in the sense that all their PhD researchers and whatever postgraduate researchers will have to undertake their research in an RRI-based approach, which is, again, a very good success considering there's a very large traditional, let's say, university that in many cases, you are faced with resistance to change. Similarly, in a completely different setting, in a more decentralized university, in a university that does not operate according to the traditional university principles, Open University in the UK. They managed to have a fight, like a strive, with big publishers and convince them to open up data sets from publications and from everything in order to enable data mining and open access and open science. And this is another big achievement that we managed to undertake throughout this project. And lastly, based on all these concrete and tangible outputs that show the value of RRI and open science, of course, we managed to engage the stakeholders and to have many project spin-offs as a result of all this great work. And some of these projects, you saw them even here in this session, and there are many, many others. And one of the most concrete and again, market-oriented, because our goal is not just to stay in the academic environment where, of course, yes, RRI sounds excellent, but we want to go to the market. And the biggest drive and the biggest ambition that we have now is with one of our recently won projects as a spin-off from Fit4RRI, through which we try to blend RRI and impact investment in order to motivate investors, business angels, venture capitalists to integrate somehow the RRI concept as an assessment framework for the innovation development process of startups, and then to decide whether the impact investment is feasible or not. So the whole potential of RRI and open science is indeed way beyond the academic and research context. And this is what this quadruple helix co-creation proves, that whenever the market actors see an interest, they are really, really there and they are really keen to work with you. And of course, at the end, we put everything together and we tried to see and to monitor based on those indicators that I showed you before, like what went well, what went wrong, what are the stakeholders that were involved, in order to have some sort of a comparative view. And we try to see, of course, what internal stakeholders that you see here in the slide, who are they, which were the main stakeholders involved. And of course, it varied from experiment to experiment and from organization to organization. We try to see whether all experiments really relied on the quadruple helix, and in most cases, it was a true quadruple helix co-creation. We try to see the main blockers, which more or less were similar to what we have seen in the previous presentation, such as, for example, insufficient solutions. And not in the sense that there are no solutions for RRI and open science or toolkits, because there are many. You can find so many out there. But there are no bespoke, like tailored solutions for the needs of each organization. And this is the actual starting point and the success factor, especially for let's say, research context. People really, and institutions really need bespoke and tailored solutions. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. No immediate change of mindset, no proven advantage of RRI, so it needs a very, very good selling point in order to have it. Limited involvement of society, money, financial issues, public perceptions, why exactly is it needed? So even if it's good, like, do we really need it? And this is the starting point of all the discussions, because everyone needs to see the benefit out of this. Lack of awareness, trust, culture, time, communication, and overall ability to engage in quadruple helix co-creation. And on top of this, of course, depending on the organization, there were also various bureaucratic institutional challenges that made the process a bit more difficult. Some of the things that you can see here, such as delays, internal political barriers, bureaucratic issues, especially issues related to the ethics procedures and the involvement of stakeholders, IPR, limited participants interested in such projects, sudden changes of the project focus, which are a bit more difficult to be implemented, especially if you consider that everything is done in an RRI context where you have multiple stakeholders involved and you have a greater complexity overall, and many, many other elements. But the key point and the key outcome for us throughout this project is that RRI is good, is feasible, and has a clear business value at the end of the day. And this is what actually pushed us and motivated us to seek further funding in order to develop even more innovative and market-oriented solutions via RRI and open science, regardless of their name, regardless of their format in the next programming framework, in order to make sure that we can really achieve and deliver a true impact on the market. So thank you very much. This was my very brief presentation on this. Happy to take questions and move on.
Thank you very much for all the very interesting presentations. I would like to ask the organizers whether we can have 5 extra minutes to handle the questions that came in during the talks.
Yes, of course, you can have those 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. So I will start with the last question. First of all, it was directed to the Fit4RRI project, to Adrian. And the question is, what is the RRI-based approach of Fit4RRI?
Okay, thank you very much. The RRI-based approach of Fit4RRI is more of a process in the sense that we don't have our own definition of RRI. No, what we did is that we took the RRI definitions and context and training tools from RRI tools, which is, let's say, the main reference project, the main reference point. And we just developed the quadruple helix engagement methodology for RRI in the sense that we developed the show, how the interaction among all these quadruple helix actors will take place in order to keep them motivated and in order to make them aware that there are solutions out there to solve their problems. And in this show, because we like to call it show because it is a show at the end of the day, rather than keep it boring with words like meetings or workshops, in this show, we tried to help them overcome any kind of barrier and any kind of issue that they faced. And here is where we provided the tailored based approach, because they said that, for example, we are working on this ethics element right now, but this ethics framework from or ethics training toolkit from RRI tools is not suitable to us. And we try to understand why it's not suitable, and we try to fix the problem, or the unsuitability, and give them the concrete solution to overcome this problem and manage to work together with the other actors. So it was more of an orchestration, let's say, rather than, let's say, in-depth rediscovery or re-engineering of RRI. This was our approach mostly.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Then there is a question for the GRIP project, and the question is, what are the concrete expected outcomes from the partner research organizations in GRIP? Elmina, Erna, who would like to take that?
Sorry, all the sides are expected to create the action plans, which helps them to embed the RRI action into the organization and implement all the goals and promote the RRI in their institution.
One would expect publications, isn't it?
Sorry?
Publication. One would expect a focus on scientific publishing.
Yes, we are looking at that at the moment as well.
If I can come in, I'm the coordinator of the GRIP project. Amina has described that a baseline study has been done of the 5 institutions by an audit, and targets have been set for all of the 5 institutions to reach. So, target for gender equality, a target for open access, a target for public engagement, target for STEM, and a target for ethics and integrity. So there will be some tangible and concrete, measurable outcomes that the centers are all going to be aiming for. These have been written in the grant agreements, an estimation, and now they're being refined in the project. And there will be a 5-year strategy based on an action plan to achieve the long-term goals of the interventions. And we'll be trialing a suite, maybe a few interventions in a trial within GRIP and testing to see if they're successful and fine-tuning those trial interventions within the project itself.
Thank you very much, Elmina Gordon, for the reply. And then I would like to go to the last question, and this was actually addressed to the GRACE project. And it says, it seems to be a large institutional, potentially bureaucratic project to me. Are there any outputs? So I would like to take the answer to this question. So we have 6 implementing organizations in the project as partners. They are identified, they were identified on the slide as universities, but actually in the case of the universities, they are not the entire university, but individual departments. So we are not directly addressing the entire university with this implementation process and the embedment of the RRI directly, but we start with a smaller dimension, exactly to assure the efficiency and the anchoring of this project, of the RRI aspects in a smaller dimension, and potentially start out from there and enlarge the scope later on in a longer term. And well, we are actually striving not to be bureaucratic, but focusing on a more democratic approach of the implementation process involving co-creation and bottom-up approaches as well. It's interesting to hear anyway that the project on the basis of the presentation seemed bureaucratic, but to assure you it is exactly the opposite of our intentions. If there are any outputs? Well, actually, the outputs are already visible in smaller dimensions, and we are, as I mentioned, and as Ida mentioned as well, we are in the middle of the implementation process of embedding RRI in specific institutions, and we expect that institutional change is not a small and short-term process, but it can be actually seen more evidently in a longer term. But I would like to assure you that we already see effects in smaller dimensions, and we expect these to be enlarged later on as time comes. So these were all the questions that have come in so far. I would like to ask whether there is one more question. Yes?
I might have missed my one question. I was very interested by the presenter of Fit4RRI saying that he's going to apply for a new proposal based on the market advantage of adopting RRI for institutions. How is he going to do this? And to announce that the RING project, which is a sister project of GRRIP, has a work package dedicated to the competitive advantage of RRI to industries. They completed a global survey of industries with 3,000 respondents, and is deliverable from Work Package 5 is available on the RING website for those that want to look at the competitive advantage report.
Yeah, actually,
I raised the question. Sorry, go ahead.
So just to answer quickly this. Thank you very much. This is excellent. Actually, we already applied and we were already awarded the SWAFT projects recently, now over the past months, through which we will work with the European Business Angel Network and various associations of entrepreneurs in order to develop like a unified impact investment, like pure market-oriented aspect based on RRI. So we will use the RRI principles in order to help investors better assess the business models of startups, of entrepreneurs. If, for example, if the business model, like the innovation development process is RRI based, then the impact investors will have, let's say, bigger incentives to invest in this specific business idea, as they will know that the actual impact after the implementation of after the market launch actually of the innovation will bring true value to the society. So this is the idea. This project was already financed, and we will start working, I think, on it from March. But it is a very good opportunity, and we would be actually very interested in the survey that you performed, as well as in any future synergies. So we can have a follow-up after this.
May I say something in addition to my questions a moment ago? What worries me about all those enterprises is that students, when they want to do their PhD, they need that time. And these type of things which are so coordinated usually take a lot of time. And I'm worried about that, more or less, particularly for the European realm. In the United States, students are more left alone.
Was this question addressed to me or generally?
Yeah, I don't know. Whoever wants to.
Yeah, actually,
go ahead.
I can tell you from our perspective. Yes, the timeline is indeed challenging. However, if, for example, we talk about businesses and industry, we notice a very rapid adaptation, a big flexibility in terms of changes, and a big eagerness to not to break the protocol, of course not, but to push things faster simply because they see a benefit. And this is the key thing. If someone sees the benefit, then they will really go for it. Now, for public universities, it's a completely different story because it will be a very, very slow and lengthy process. For private universities, this will work much easier. And this is what we're also trying to do with our local, let's say, private university that we work with as a center. And we notice that many other private universities out there are trying to push this, and they have greater levels of flexibility in terms of making the process faster, changing their institutional frameworks and guidelines in order to enable a fast-paced acceleration and implementation of RRI. But I do agree, yes, that generally speaking, it is a lengthy process, especially in the European context. This was from our experience. I'm not sure if someone else has other ideas on this.
Yeah, Asian experiences are interesting, of course. Singapore and Hong Kong and how they do things. So if they make an institutional arrangement, they have a clause in it that within 6 months it will have to be dissolved if there's no good evaluation. Are you considering something like that? Is there an end to this?
Not at this stage, but it will be good to take it as a suggestion for future endeavors that we have on this matter. So we'll definitely consider it. Thank you very much for the suggestion.
With this, I would like to thank you very much for the participation and all the interesting questions and again, all the interesting presentations, but we are running more than 10 minutes over time. So with this, I would like to close the session. Thank you very much again to all the speakers, all the participants, all those that have put interesting questions, and above all, the organizers of the Triple Helix Summit to make this event possible. Thank you very much again. It was a pleasure to have you all here. Bye-bye.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.